Well, good evening. I'm your host, Robert Wilson, with Cowboy Wisdom Podcast. Tonight's podcast, 7 Ways Why Liberation and Wisdom Dissolves the Hidden Barriers of Work on Me and Tools. Most people think their challenges come from the work they do or the tools they use, but the real barriers are the invisible ones, the mental fences, inherited scripts, outdated operating systems that run silently in the background. Liberation and wisdom dissolve these unseen limits. Liberation frees you from some subconscious rules that makes your work feel heavy, complicated, and obligatory. Wisdom cuts through the noise, the clutter, and the conditions, shoulds that keep you stuck in effort instead of flow. As you rise of liberation, you stop obeying the cognitive recollections and start directing you onto your paths of sovereign enlightenment. As you rise of wisdom, you stop wrestling with work and moving upward and onward with clarity, precision, and sovereign ease. Liberation removes unrealized friction you never knew you were carrying. Wisdom unveils the shortcuts you never knew existed. Together they broadcast and energize and rise you out of work from a burden into a channel and tools, and from the constraint of tools into extensions and listening to your intuition, innovation, and imagination. This is where your inner range expands. This is where your clarity leads. This is where your desired lifestyle stops being a dream and starts becoming your natural frequencies of easy. 7 ways why liberation and wisdom dissolves the hidden barriers of work on myself and tools. Liberation frees you from tool obedience. Most people never use tools use them. They follow the software, the system, and the workflow like it's a sacred script. Liberation breaks through that trance. It lets you bend tools to your rhythm instead of shrinking yourself to fit theirs. Liberation turns tools from cages into catalysts to celebrate your life. Wisdom sees beyond the workload illusions. Work feels heavy only when you're operating from old programming. Wisdom dissolves the invisible shoulds and musts. And this is how it's done. Rules that clog your clarity. Suddenly the same tasks feel lighter, brighter, and easier because you're no longer dragging yesterday's mindset, using yesterday's tools, and working on yourself to liberating you in the now. Wisdom removes the weight you never understood you were carrying. Clarity cuts through the hidden complexities. Most barriers are never real. They're mental fog and autopilot barriers. Charity slices through overthinking, overstructuring, and overtooling. It shows you the simplest path, the cleanest action, and a sovereign move. Why work and tools are cognitive recollections of your daily tasks, making everything a mental challenge. Tools trigger yesterday's mental scripts. Every tool you open, email, calendar, software, dashboards, pulls up the same mental files. You used yesterday instead of fresh clarity. You're replaying old cognitive patterns. Tools become memory triggers, never momentum makers. Why work rehearses routine instead of revelation. Daily tasks activate the same neural pathways and grooves, so your mind defaults to repetition instead of innovation. You're never challenged by the work, you're challenged by the mental reruns it activates. Repetition feels like effort because it's recycled thinking. Repetition feels like effort because it's recycled thinking. Cognitive load comes from carrying old context. The mind doesn't just do the task, it drags the entire history of the task with it and with you. Past frustrations, expectations, and habits pile on, turning simple actions into mental weight. The task is never heavy. The accumulated memories of it is. Accumulated memories. How do we live from accumulated memories? I know I do. That was an awakening for me. Why tools encompass mental fences. Tools turn processes into prescriptions. The moment a tool tells you how to work it, quietly limits you what you can image. You start following its structure instead of your sovereign flow. Tools become fences when that you obey their design instead of directing your own way and clearing your own pathways of enlightenment. Tool freezes yesterday's logic into today's actions. Every tool is built on someone else's assumption. Every tool is built on someone else's assumptions, systems, or sequences. When you use it uncritically, you inherit their thinking and shrink your own range of scenarios of your desired lifestyle. You're never just using the tool, you're using the mindset baked in it. Tools anchor you to routine instead of revelation because tools store tasks, templates, and history. They pull you back into repetition. They trigger memory instead of imagination, innovation, inspiration. That makes innovation and intuition, imagination feel risky or unnecessary. Tools rehearse the past. Liberation unveils the scenarios of here and now. Why knowing I have tools in my toolbox creates an unrealized limitations. Knowing becomes a comfort cage. When you know you have tools, you stop exploring beyond them. The mind relaxes into familiarity instead of innovation. Knowing creates comfort, and comfort kills curiosity. That it does. Tools become the ceiling instead of the starting line. The moment you identify with your toolbox, you unconsciously limit your possibilities and scenarios to what those tools can do. You shrink your imagination to match the inventory. Your toolbox becomes your boundary instead of your launch pad. I already have tools, blocks fresh revelations. The belief that you equipped can blind you to new methods, new insights, and new frequencies of clarity. You rely on what worked before instead of what wants to emerge from within you and your free-flowing imagination, innovation, inspiration, and out of everywhere dares to rise you to everywhere. Old tools maintain old outcomes. Liberation invites fresh voltage. Why tools and working on myself are scripted sabotage. Self-work keeps you fixing you that was never broken. The moment you work on yourself, you accept the script that something is wrong with you. Tools and techniques quietly reinforce the brokenness premise. Self-work sells repair. Liberation unveils sovereignty. Liberation unveils sovereignty. Tools trap you in perpetual preparation instead of presence. Every new tool, method, or framework whispers the same lie. You're not ready yet. You're not ready yet. Yes, you are. You end up polishing your potential instead of expressing it. Tools rehearse readiness. Wisdom activates now. Improvement systems keep you looping yesterday's logic. Improvement systems keep you looping yesterday's logic. Most tools are built on old assumptions, old psychology, and old paradigms. When you use them, you inherit their limits. Working on yourself is just upgrading the cage instead of dissolving it. Why personal growth, self-help, and self-improvement worships rerunning old scripts and old patterns. Self-help recycles the same problem, story. Most self-help starts with the assumption that you're broken, wounded, or lacking. So every technique loops you back into the same narrative. You keep revisiting the same issues, not because they're real, but because the system needs them to stay relevant. Self-help never frees you from the story. It keeps the story circulating within you. Personal growth reinforces the pattern it claims to fix. Growth culture trains you to chase upgrades, levels, and improvements, which quietly keeps you orbiting in the same identity and the same revolutions as before. You're always becoming, never being. The pattern persists because the process depends on the pattern. Self-improvement worships the past as the blueprint. Every tool, model, and method is built on yesterday's psychology, yesterday's logic, and yesterday's assumptions. When you use them, you inherit their limits and rerun the scripts. Improvement is just polishing old programming instead of dissolving it and rising out of it. Why tools and working on you is me worshiping my previous life events. Self-work recycles the same old story. Every time you work on yourself, you drag yesterday's events into today's energy and inner dialogue. You're never evolving. You're polishing the past and worshiping the past. You're never healing the wound. You're honoring it with a maintenance plan. Tools keep you orbiting the same identity. Tools are built to fix the version of you shaped by old experiences. Using them keeps you loyal to who you are, to who you were, never who you're becoming or experiencing now. Your toolbox becomes a shrine to your former self. Your toolbox becomes a shrine to your former self. Improvement rituals turn memory into a master. Improvement rituals turn memory into a master. When you keep upgrading, tweaking, and analyzing yourself, you're bowing to the events that created those patterns. You're letting history dictate your evolutions. Self-work is just worshiping the past in a productivity disguise. While searching through a toolbox looking for the right tool, my subconscious representations look for the tool and make me feel easy about the situation. The toolbox triggers familiar mental shortcuts. When you dig through a toolbox, your subconscious isn't looking for the best tool, it's looking for the most familiar tool. It reaches for what feels easy because it's tied to old experiences, old successes, and old patterns. You're never choosing a tool, you're choosing a memory. The search rehearses yesterday's solutions. Your mind scans the toolbox based on what worked before, not what wants to emerge now. This keeps you solving today's challenges with yesterday's logic. How do you do that? Solving today's challenges with yesterday's logic. The right tool is often just the most rehearsed one. Familiar tools soothe the mind, yet shrink your range. The subconscious loves ease, predictability, and low cognitive friction. So it nudges you toward tools that feel safe, never tools that expand you. Comfort masquerades as clarity, and your potential gets boxed in by convenience. Why tools working on yourself are stuck in worshiping yesterday's thinking knowing patterns. Tools anchor you into logic, into to the logic that created the pattern. Every tool is built on yesterday's assumptions, steps, fixes, frameworks, and disguises. When you use them, you're never evolving, you're reenacting the mindset that shaped the original pattern. You end up honoring the past by operating inside its architecture. How do you, have you ever changed your life and yet find out you're inside the patterns that got you there? I have. Working on me recycles the same identity you're trying to outgrow, arise out of. Self-work requires you to reference the old you, the one that's shaped by past patterns, past beliefs, past interpretations. So every attempt to improve reinforces the very identity you're trying to rise out of. You're polishing the past instead of dissolving it and coloring the here and now. Thinking knowing patterns refer to familiarity over freedom. Your mind clings to what it already understands or thinks it knows. Tools and self-work feel safe because they match your existing mental maps, yet that safety is a shrine to yesterday's thinking. You're never stuck because you're flawed. You're stuck because your mind worships the familiar. While working on me, trying to change your thinking keeps you stuck in worshiping yesterday. Changing your thinking requires you to revisit old thinking first. Every attempt to fix your thoughts forces you to reference the very patterns you're trying to escape. You end up circling the same mental neighborhood, polishing the same memories, rehearsing the same logic. You're never evolving, you're bowing to yesterday's mind map. And that is the thing. When you get to the here and now, you can never change the here and now, but you're trying to change the past in the here and now. So you want to listen to your energetic liberation and move yourself forward. Self-work treats yesterday's story as a today's source code. When you try to change your thinking, you're still using the past as the blueprint. You're editing old chapters instead of authoring a fresh frequency of here and now. You keep honoring the past by making it the foundation of your upgrades. When you talk about the past or do anything going back to the past, you're still worshiping the past. Improvement mindset worships the familiar over the free. Your mind loves what it already understands and knows. So when you work on yourself, you're unconsciously choosing tools, thoughts, strategies that match yesterday's worldview. You stay loyal to the old you because your thinking can only rearrange what it already believes. Why tools and working on me destroy listening, questions, and intuition. Tools replace listening with preloaded answers. Have you ever done that? Ask a question, you already had it preloaded? Oh, hell, I have. I like admitting to everything because it liberates me. The moment you reach for a tool, you stop listening to your inner signals and start obeying the tool's script. You trade raw perception for prepackaged solutions. Tools mute intuition by offering answers before you even hear the real question. Self-work turns questions into checklists. Self-work turns questions into checklists. When you're working on yourself, your questions stop being alive. They become diagnostic prompts, improvement tasks, or mindset exercises. Curiosity collapses into procedure. How are you trying to change your life through step-by-step programs? All that does is keep the old mindset. I stopped using anything with the word steps and programming in, I stopped listening to it. But that's for me. You do what you was best for you. Improvement mindset distrusts intuition by default. Self work assumes your natural instincts are flawed, untrained, and unreliable, so you override your inner knowing with frameworks, steps, and mental edits. Intuition never speaks when you're busy correcting it. Intuition never speaks when you're busy correcting it. Why tools and working on me destroy listening questions and intuition. Tools replace questions with preloaded answers. Why the word self invokes working on me and tools shutting off free-flowing energy. Self-work turns your energy into a project instead of a pulse. The moment you work on yourself, you shift from being a living current to being a task list. You start managing your energy instead of expressing it. Projects have steps. Energy has flow. Self-work replaces flow with effort. Tools replace intuition with templates. Tools never ask you to listen. They ask you to follow. They give you structure, sequence, and steps which quietly override your natural rhythm. Templates tame your energy by forcing it into someone else's format. Templates tame your energy by forcing it into someone else's format. Improvement mode distracts you from the signal you already carry. When you're busy fixing, tweaking, and optimizing yourself, you stop hearing the raw wisdom moving through you. You're too focused on adjusting the instrument to actually play it. Self-work edits the signal. Sovereignty amplifies it. When energetic liberation, cowboy wisdom open your energized listening and maverick questioning rises you to embody sovereign activation and autonomous expansion. Energetic liberation clears the static so you can hearken your own signals. When you dissolve inherited noise, polite programming, and yesterday's mental reruns, your listening shifts from mental to energetic. You stop hearing echoes and start hearkening essence. Energetic liberation tunes you to your sovereign frequency, never society's static. Cowboy wisdom breaks the herd mind and opens a maverick inquiry. Cowboy wisdom refuses consensus, compliance, and crowd-approved thinking. It cracks open the courage to ask outlaw questions, the kind that never seek answers but detonate assumptions. Maverick questioning is born the moment you stop riding the herd's trail. That's when you ride out of herdocracy, turdocracy, and followocracy. Sovereign activation emerges when listening question align. Energized listening reveals what's the veracity and authenticity of your questions. Maverick questioning unveils what the scenarios and the paths of enlightenment. Together, they ignite autonomous expansion, never improvement, never fixing, but rising into your unfiltered, unborrowed, unbounded, sovereign trails of enlightenment. Sovereignty activates when your perception stops obeying and starts originating your own true authentic talents. Why autonomous expansion, politically incorrect inspiration, cowboy wisdom, outlaw optimism, expressing revolutionary revelation, destroy working on me programming and tools liberating you. Autonomous expansion makes self-work obsolete. When you rise into autonomous expansion, you stop trying to fix yourself and start expressing yourself to the world. You're no longer tinkering with your identity like a project. You're erupting into a sovereign presence. Expansion dissolves the need for tools because you stop stop having problems to solve to realize you're uncovering and discovering your own divine daredevilry. Politically incorrect inspiration and cowboy wisdom break the obedience spell. Cowboy wisdom never cares about polite psychology, proved healing methods, or socially acceptable self-improvement rituals. It cuts straight through the programming that says you must work on yourself to be worthy, as outlaw clarity frees you from the cultural script that says you need fixing. Outlaw optimism and revolutionary revelations override operating systems. Revelations never negotiate with your past. It never asks for permission from your tools, trauma, or your thinking pattern. It detonates them. Outlaw optimism refuses the premise that you're broken, behind, or incomplete. Revelations liberate you by destroying self-work with sovereign audacity. And that is something I've really discovered for myself. When I stopped obeying the social obedience of self-help, personal growth, and rose to my outlaw optimism, cowboy wisdom, but mainly it was sovereign activation. And something I want to share is I don't use the word self anymore. I stopped because self brings you up all your patterns and your fixes and everything. I'm sovereign and I'm expanding through life with ease. Sovereign gives you the audacity and the authenticity to expand through life with ease. And I want to thank you. I am Robert A. Wilson, and may your life be as blessed as you are a blessing to me in the world.